All right, let's get right into it. We're doing a music production question and answer YouTube video today. And I have a bunch of good questions from people on all over my social media pages, from my Instagram, on my personal Instagram, our Free Game Podcast Instagram. I think they hit us on our Facebook pages and our Twitter, everywhere. So we just kind of compiled a few of the questions and we're going to jump right into it. The first question comes from Timothy Arnold Sears. He's on my Facebook page. Make sure you follow him. His question was, how do you feel about the shift of analog hardware to the industry using more digital sounds instead of VSTs? All right, Timothy, I like to say first that I'm a full advocate for digital music. I love analog music. I love what I was able to get out of analog music. However, I love what I'm able to do in the digital realm. It's way more effective for me as a record producer nowadays. Now, some of the things that I did like when I was working analog was I was able to get more frequency response on a low end from some of the stuff that I wanted to do. Like I was able to really drive my kick drums to a really loud place without distortion. I was also able to just kind of create a warmness in my music that I don't necessarily have now unless I run my production back through tape or unless I add some type of plug-in that simulates it. But the digital realm, in my opinion, is a much more useful realm for me as a producer. Now, this doesn't mean that if you're a producer in analog music that you should go digital. Do what's best for you. However, digitally, I kind of feel like what I'm able to do with VSTs and things like that are allowing me to not have to spend so much money in production. We all know that buying any type of hardware is expensive. We know that, you know, to buy for instance, to buy like a compressor, it's expensive. Compressors could run anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 depending on what kind you want. And you could probably get a simulated version of the same compressor for $300-400 as a VST. Also, it also cuts down from an instrumentation standpoint. I like to go digital simply because I have full orchestras at my hand. I have full bands at my hands. I have synth programs that have unlimited sounds, it seems like, at my fingertips, basically because it's all designed to work in a digital format. When we were doing it analog, of course, if I wanted to have an orchestra sound, I had to have a real orchestra. Whereas now, you know, there are programs designed to where I can emulate just about anything I want to. So in the sense of what I like more, it's definitely digital. However, I loved analog when I was producing on it, but I'm not looking forward to going back to it anytime soon. This next question is from Khalees Ben Carter. He's on my Facebook page. We go back a long way. I actually know Khalees personally. His first question was, how long does it take to make an artist a star, and where does the producer play in that process? First off, I would like to say, I appreciate the question, Khalees. But first off, I would like to say it's not really up to the producer to make a star. An artist is usually, they have those attributes before they even decide to get into music or decide to produce or get involved with the record industry. A lot of times people are just born with that ability. Now, I think that's just to answer the side of the star part of it. However, I kind of think I know what you're asking me. How long does it take to take a person from raw talent to presentable talent to the people, or at successful or star quality talent to the people? I think that process is, in my opinion, it takes at least somewhere between 6 or 7 years to, who knows, it could go longer than that. But I think if I was to find, let's say I was to find an artist in, you know, in the 16 to 18-year-old range, you know, my goal would be to have them at their highest peak as an artist, as a performer, or whatever it is they are, you know, by 25, 26 years old. So 6 or 7 years is the process that I kind of feel it takes for a person to become fully engulfed in the artistry that they're trying to, to get off and take to the public. If you get a chance, go back and check out this new documentary that's on HBO called The Defiant Ones, where it's a documentary about Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre. Well, Jimmy Iovine kind of has this one section where he meets, where he signs Gwen Stefani, and he explains to her that she's going to be at the top of her game within 6 or 7 years. And I kind of think that theory is, it's a fair theory, considering all of the artist development that has to go into it and such. So that takes me to the next part of the question, which is, what role does the producer play in the developing of a star? I think the producer is essential. I think the producer will play his role in this more so in the sense of like developing the artist from a singer-songwriter standpoint. It'll develop the artist from like an imaging standpoint or from a storytelling standpoint. A lot of times the producer has his hands in on all of those different things. Some artists come to producers with nothing but raw talent. All they can do is sing, but they don't know how to project. They don't know how to harmonize. They don't know how to lay vocals. They don't know how to work in the studio. A number of things could take place. And so depending on how raw the talent is, it's also part of, how long it may take, and it also will entail how much the producer needs to be involved. All right, the next question is from Trayvon the Don. His question is, what is the standard for negotiating splits and publishing percentages for producers and writers? This is a good question. I get this a lot. I think the best way to approach splitting percentages for songwriting and publishing is to just basically go in with the idea of splitting it fairly. If it's 2 writers on the record, then split it 50-50. If it's 3 writers on the record, then split it evenly. You know what I mean? This is common practice in places like Nashville. It's also common in like rock music and things like that, where bands and stuff like that are involved with the records. It's a little less common in urban music because in most urban music, what happens is a producer could write and produce an entire composition on their own and then bring it to a session so that a writer or a group of songwriters can get on there and do top line on the records. In that case, normally 50% of the record already belongs to the composer or the writer of the music, which doesn't really work with my theory, because at that point, the rest of the song, which is the other 50%, has to be split, and normally that's split fairly. So if in that case, if it's 4 writers on the song and one of them is the producer, then of course the producer ends up with the larger share of the song, which is, it's whatever. Some people do it that way, some people do it the other way. I think the bottom line for the whole thing is, though, unless you're a person who's very meticulous about actual percentage participation, which some people are, and there's nothing wrong with that, I suggest any part of the song that isn't already decided upon should be split evenly. The next question is from Ty the Dreamer. He said, can you highlight the importance of communication between the producer, artist, and A&R? All right, Ty, this is a really important part to me. I think that a lot of people overlook the communication while making records and what it takes to actually get all parties involved excited about a song. When I go into a studio or when I'm invited to work on a project, the first thing that I'm trying to communicate with all parties involved is, what's the vibe of the album and what is it the artist is actually looking for? I find it to be more beneficial for me when I get to know what the artist wants. I'm not as concerned with what the A&R wants, however, I do respect it. When I can find out what the artist is going for and where they are and what their moments are leading them to at that time, that's when I'm able to create the best record that I can think of. I also communicate with A&Rs, but I'm very open-minded when I talk to them, because what I know is they also have a bottom line mentality, which means it's very important that they end up with something successful on the album. And so their approach to it is to normally ask for the biggest record you can find, or they like a lot of times they come at us with the I need a hit record, I need this, that, and the third. So respectfully though, I always listen to an A&R and then I research and try to figure out what's going on. If there's no way for me to find out and the A&R is the only person that I can get the information from, then of course I have to act accordingly. If I want to be a part of the project, I have to try to appease the A&R. So I'll talk to them, I'll communicate to them what it is I want or what it is they want, and I do whatever I can to get the job done. And the same goes for the artist. The goal is to always get to the artist though, somehow or another. The more trustworthy people in trying to figure out what an artist needs for the album, in my personal opinion and experience, has been either the artist themselves, the manager, or somebody who's really close to the artist. Like, you never know, it could be anybody. It could be the person in the studio that just rolls the blunts. I don't know. Anybody who is available to really tell you what the artist is looking for and can give you like real direction. The next question is from QnA, and he's asking a personal question, which is, what is your next goal? My next goal as a record producer is to move up into more of an executive position. I'm more so interested nowadays in doing executive production on albums. I'm looking to do more producer A&Ring for albums. I'm also trying to build a production team so that I can facilitate things that a production team might need, being that I'm more experienced in this field than some of the newer producers. So at the end of the day, I really just want to grow and become more of an executive in the music business. So that's my next goal. Hopefully y'all rocking with me when I reach those goals. It is what it is. Again, y'all follow QnA on that one. The next question comes from SD on the beat, and it says, what are your goals? What are some goals to target this year as a producer coming up? Again, that's kind of personal. So for me, I'm really just trying to work on building my own artist. I have an artist named Sky Morales. I'm currently developing that artist. I'm also developing a sound with her. I'm also becoming a better songwriter. She's a better songwriter. It's like I'm really just at a place now where I want to be involved with a project from start to finish and just be a part of the process, as opposed to shopping beats and just trying to make albums these days. I think that the business is changing so much that I want to be a part of an entire collective, which I think will work better for me as a record producer, as opposed to trying to just make an album. You know what I'm saying? So the next question is from BC Music. He says, what type of reverb are you using on your drums? That kind of varies. I don't know if I want to give up that, but I will say this, you know what I'm saying? I use a reverb module by Slate Digital. And so the way that I like to do it though is, I'm the type of person that when I'm putting reverb on my sounds or on my drums, I tend to go backwards. So I'll have it over reverbed at first. I'll start out with it just completely unnatural, sounding extremely crazy. There have been times where I left it like that. But normally the way I do it is I'll start with a reverb wide open, sounds really crazy, super overdone, and I'll just back it down until it hits perfectly with the sound that I want. So sometimes I like reverb on my drums, sometimes I like my drums dry, but in either way, whenever I choose to put it on there, I like to back it down to the point to where it just sounds the way I want it. And it's kind of like a sound design trick. It's really not, there's no specific way to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes it's super dope when it's just dry as shit. Sometimes it's dope when you put a slap reverb on it or a slap delay. So it's really a choice thing. But the program I was talking about is a Slate Digital reverb. Just look up Slate Digital. They've got a whole module, man, with nothing but reverbs on it. It's super dope. So yeah. All right, this is the last question. I don't have the guy's name, but I'll post it on the page. He asked, how many times did you get screwed over on your come up, and any suggestion to fellow producers and beat makers on what not to do? I'll tell you one thing not to do. Don't ever sign a piece of paper without reading it. Don't ever sign a piece of paper without having a contract lawyer read it. That's key. I think one of the biggest mistakes most producers have made, and I know me for myself, I've ended up in several publishing situations, production situations, yada yada, with terms that I didn't necessarily agree with. I'm not mad at it, because what you learn over the years is how to move and how not to move. And no matter, I'll be completely honest, no matter how much you get a lawyer, no matter how much they look at it, there's always something that you might not have been happy with, or that you accepted, or you took on, you know, just for the sake of, and you find out later that you wish you would have caught that. So my first thing would be, just make sure you have proper counsel when looking at paperwork or signing things such as production deals, work for hires, any of those types of things. Like, don't sign anything that has to do with work outside of split sheets and things of that nature without a lawyer. And honestly, if you're uncomfortable signing split sheets and things like that, then also get your lawyer involved. I think that is the biggest mistake that all producers, songwriters, artists, everyone in the music business can attest to. One or two situations where the paperwork is what kind of jammed it up for them, because they didn't see something or they overlooked something. I do advise all producers and songwriters to understand that this is a business of mostly mediation. So there's hardly ever a time where, you know, suing is even an issue. Most of the time you have to work it out. So there's give and take. So if you're going into a situation with a company, you know, be prepared to give and take. Just have a lawyer to help you understand what you're giving and taking. So I think that that's a good way to you know, to put it. If it's anything that I would tell people, there's never a situation that I feel like people are getting just completely screwed. In my opinion, if you got screwed, you screwed yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because this is a time and an era in life where if you're hasty, if you make decisions based off of emotion, if you're not careful, this is what happens. You know what I'm saying? So my realest response would be to make sure you got an attorney that can help you get through anything if you're unsure. Because I think the worst thing in the world, in the record industry is people who complain about their situations or what they were after they didn't get where they wanted to be, or after something better came along and then they can't do it because of prior paperwork or prior agreements and things like that. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question. Thank you for checking out the first of many Q&As on the Free Game Podcast YouTube. Please check out the Free Game Podcast on iTunes. Make sure you check out, subscribe to our page here, and you know, tell somebody about it. Let's build this thing up. I'm Will Power. I appreciate you. Holla.